Whenever you are. All right, good afternoon. How is everyone?
Good. How are you?
Better each and every day. Let's try again. How is everyone? Good. My name is Adam Beatty. I'm the Program Director of Cybersecurity at the University of Charleston. Give you a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Winfield, West Virginia. Anyone ever hear of Winfield, West Virginia? Anyone ever hear of Hurricane, West Virginia? When I was a kid, I always mispronounced the place. I always called it what? Hurricane, right? So I went to Dairy Queen as a child and walked up to the cashier and said, how do you pronounce the name of this place? Can you do it really slowly? And they went, Dairy Queen. Thank you. It gets worse. All right, so I want to take a different little step as far as approach of what we have for these presentations, because typically it's very technical, and I want to talk about an aspect that I feel is very important as we progress in the cybersecurity realm, and that is leadership. Just a show of hands, has anyone here ever had a bad leader in their life? Right, really didn't care about you, just bad leadership, whatever it may be. Have you ever had a leader that doesn't really understand what you do? Right, yeah. Just throwing it out there, just asking. So the first concept that I want to bring up is WYSIWYG. Anyone here know what that is? Just say it. What is it? What you see is what you get. One more time. What you see is what you get. Now I'm going a little scripting here. I have a less than or equal sign, and then I have this saying. What you see is all that's there. Okay? So when I say what you see, you will say is all that's there. What you see is there. Good. We want to do this throughout the entire presentation because we're going to talk about the leadership concept, and I want to talk about two systems that Kahneman and Klein talk about a lot about leadership. It'll make a little bit more sense as we progress. So what you see is all there is. Good. So a little preamble, I just want to go ahead and advise, though, that if anything is of my own anecdotal knowledge, I will advise. I do have a lot of scholarly references on here that will go ahead and back up with data that I have found. But again, a lot of this is just things from my own experiences, which I have derived this presentation in that fashion. So just want to go ahead and just make a mention of that, too, that if anything is of my own anecdotal knowledge, I will kindly advise. So the opportunity as it came to leadership, and I'm curious to what people think about this. Actually, I want to take a little poll. Anyone here work remotely? Okay, a few. Okay, if you would have thought 25 years ago that'd be a possibility, would you thought that was a possibility? I wouldn't have, is why I ask. It's something that I always thought would be great, but I didn't think it was a possibility. So all the way back to 2003, they were saying that virtual leadership was going to be a new aspect, not just in the field of cybersecurity, but in all forms of leadership. So when I think about back to 2003, I don't know, I want to take another poll. Did you find the internet to still be commonplace for everyone? I kind of don't. 2003, we still didn't have a lot of DSL at the time, agreed? We still had those type of platforms, so it still wasn't commonplace being in the homes of individuals, and maybe not even businesses yet. I remember in 2003, it was T1 lines. The majority of places where I worked, we were still on that T1 line base. So as we think about everything that's happened here in the past decade, anyone remember a year called 2020? Right? Good, not too many people flinched, right? A lot changed, okay? So in the past 5 years, we've learned a lot from that pandemic and that shutdown with remote work, and then also in leadership as well. I don't want to get technical. I kind of lied. I guess I will get a little bit technical. I found that when we had to do the remote ability, when we had to do the remote work, a lot of organizations I was collaborating with and working with, they weren't ready for that type of platform, right? Microsoft Azure was not as commonplace as it is now. And again, Citrix was still a thing, still is a thing, I think, to this day. But again, the remote ability was not as commonplace as it is now. Again, there were organizations that still didn't utilize VPNs. Right? So again, the pandemic did change a lot of that. So the opportunity is that we have the ability to work more than we have in the past. Not saying that every career opportunity remotely is great, but we have the ability to do more work remotely. And some people, which there's nothing wrong with this, who here prefers to be in an actual physical location than work at home? Nobody? Okay. Would everyone here prefer to work remotely if they wanted to? Yeah. I like the commute. Was that? Like a little bit, so hybrid, right? And there's not a right or wrong, true? It's about preference, right? So the growth at the same time, I hate to just go ahead and pinpoint the healthcare industry, but this is a big one as it's applied to all things of cybersecurity, because again, with PHI, HIPAA, PII, the list goes on and on with health records, and then who here has participated in telehealth before? because that's something that I've used here in the past 5 years. I would have never guessed in a million years the cybersecurity individual in me is like, well, you can't do that, right? You have to be physical because your actual information needs to be private. It needs to be secure. But we have these abilities now, and my wife, who is a remote worker for a healthcare industry, she was originally from North Carolina, and then she moved to Ohio. That's how she and I met. It's just ironic that, again, that ability that she works for the company in North Carolina, she's able to move to Ohio. So they just had their AWS switch, by the way, too. So I got to hear a lot of complaints, but it's fine. Everything's working well. Everything's working well, just a migration flip. So again, we think about all these concepts and everything that we can do, not just COVID-19, the pandemic alone, but again, the leadership quality has changed. Have you ever had a leader that acts a little bit differently in an email than they do in person? I have to have hands with that. Do we have anyone in leadership that acts a little bit differently on the phone than they do in person? Show of hands, right? So now, 2 hands, I like that. I like that.
I mean, I don't do it, but other people do.
No, we don't do it, right? We don't do it. It's everyone else outside this room is the ones that do it. True? Because what you see is all there is. See? See how that's working already? Love it, love it. Okay, so just putting that foundation out before I go a little bit further when it comes to the growth that we've had in our industry. So here are the problems that I see when it comes to leadership, all right? We have leaders in the cybersecurity sector who are not aware of what you see is all there is. So Kahneman, who is really big on these 2 system models when it comes to psychology and leadership, he has a system 1 and a system 2. So just take this ride with me if you will. System 1 are individuals who have the quickest methods to obtain information and tend not to seek more information once they are content with the information they have obtained. This goes back to my question earlier. Have you ever had a person in leadership that does not understand what you do? Show of hands again. Like they really don't understand. They could not do your job. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not saying that an individual that's not a CISSP can't be in leadership, okay? I want to clarify that. I'm not saying you have to have all the credentials in the world to be in leadership, but do we all agree that in the cyber sector, you need to be in the cyber sector before you're in leadership? Would everyone agree with that? I think so. I really do. I've never been a millionaire, never been a billionaire. I shouldn't run a bank. Amen? Right? Because what you see is all there is. Now, if you want to donate to the Dr. Beatty 401k fund and make me a millionaire, we can talk about that later. Venmo, PayPal, we'll talk later. Okay. Was that? Yeah, exactly. So system 1, we can call that heuristics. We can call that knee-jerk reactions. And again, we talk about threats, vulnerabilities, CVEs. We could go on and on and on. We have leaders that don't really understand those concepts and they just jump to conclusions. Yes, I'm going off of space on this. They jump to conclusions based on what you should do, when you should do it, and how you should do it. Okay? Now, in cybersecurity, do we have to react sometimes quickly, yes or no? We do, right? When we're talking about planning and implementation, should we react quickly, though? Planning and implementation phases, no. That's where we come into System 2. System 2 is where you're taking everything into account. You're taking everything that you learned in the past, what you know now, and what you may learn in the future, right? Can't always predict it. But again, it's like disaster recovery. It's have you ever heard of the really sad story that was disaster recovery? Well, we planned for everything fireproof, but we didn't plan for anything waterproof. Right? Have you ever heard? I've had that. Like again, they went ahead and they did a disaster recovery plan where again, they were going to go ahead and move to a different floor, but again, a flood came through. Again, they planned for fire, but they didn't plan for water. So with System 2, we're going ahead and thinking about every form that we can go through. This is algorithms, no pun intended. So algorithms, now, are we going to be able to go ahead and determine and predict every type of problem we could ever have? Probably not. Right? I mean, we can in this room, but everyone else can't, right? Right? What you see is all there is. Thank you. So, System 2 is, again, you're thinking about more complex problems. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go ahead and raise your hand just to agree with me, but have you had System 1 leaders in your lifetime? Not just in cybersecurity, I'm talking in general, just knee-jerk reaction, just very reactionary. I have. I mean, anyone here ever work retail? Right? Yeah. Yeah, so again, what's that? Yeah. Any type of customer service realm. Yeah, very System 1. See how that works? Very System 1 type oriented, but there's not a right or wrong. I want to clarify that too. I'm just trying to bring this up because I'm going to go ahead and summarize everything and surmise, if I may, at the very end of this lecture of why I'm talking about this. So again, System 1 and System 2, right? Very, very different type ideals. So, how many fingers am I holding up? 4? Okay, good.
And one thumb?
No, we'll keep it at 4. Well, actually, we can go. We can keep it 5. What's 7 times 835? See, but what are you doing? Now, see, you're using system 2. See what you just did? You were going to use a calculator, right? But do you see what I just did there? Whereas, again, if you have a system 1 mindset, would you probably just guess? Right? Pen and paper, we can go ahead and solve it. Calculator, fine. But that's what I'm trying to prove. Again, 4 or 5. Then 7 times 835. Again, you have to use system 1 or system 2. So the vulnerability dilemma, in my opinion, is we have so many leaders that would not even be able to tell us what the CIA triad is. Do you agree with that? We have so many people in leadership. I'm not even going to get into higher in executive leaders, but we have so many individuals that if I said, what's the CIA triad? And they would probably think that we're talking about a government agency. Yes, when we say CIA. But again, confidentiality, finish it for me. Integrity, and what's the last one? Thank you, I didn't know what it meant. No, just kidding. See, but again, it's just one of those things that just really bothers me because I believe in this concept. I believe a triangle is the strongest shape. Okay, so when I think about the CIA triad, without that shape, it's very, very hard to learn cybersecurity because you can just go all over the place. I just think it's crazy to take someone in a leadership role and hand them Kali Linux, hand them Splunk, to go ahead and hand them Aircrack NG, Metasploit, and so on and so on. So leaders are using various micromanaging tactics for their cybersecurity professionals that they lead, and it's common for these leaders to practice these reactive traits of leadership instead of proactive traits of leadership when breaches occur. I've talked to individuals, I can't talk about the organizations or the breaches that have occurred, but it's been one of those situations a breach has occurred and the leadership says, well, why did that happen? Does that make sense? Again, it's like a breach occurred and then they're automatically pointing the finger. It's like, well, why didn't you have that solved? Okay, well, we didn't know about that breach at the time. Everyone here familiar with zero-day attacks? Right, very, very common concept, right? And again, they're called zero-day attacks because why? Can anyone just shout it out? They're unknown, right? So the planning and implementation phase, if we think that system 1, the leadership that I've found in the past is like, well, why did that happen? Well, you should be so good at your job that should never happen. Okay, I am great at coding. I mean, I'm great at that. I can go and I can look at a script and everything, but again, I can't think of every possibility out there. And then the one big thing, whole other story, insider threats, right? So if you have individuals that are actually familiar with your products, they can go ahead and see your script, et cetera. They're familiar with your network. They know your router password is 123. Can't do that anymore, but you know what I mean. Telnet was a big one. Anyone here remember just like I had a ton of Telnet exploits in my career. So leader membership exchange, another thing I want to bring up to everyone's attention as well. This concept is one that I have found anecdotally, but the research will go ahead and define it is that you have an in-group and an out-group. And what these leaders will do in LMX is they'll gravitate towards the people that gravitate towards them. They'll go ahead and give the attention to the people that give them attention as well. So if you have an extroverted leader with extroverted individuals that they lead, they'll go ahead and gravitate more towards them than the introverts. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and stereotype, but do you think in our realm, in our sector, which is the best sector, by the way, we have a lot of introverts? Yes or no? I'm raising my hand. Believe it or not, I'm very introverted. I'm just not bashful or shy, and I don't have any shame in life. So that's why I'm able to do what I do, come up here and speak, right? And again, my perspective, life's too short. Just enjoy it, right? But again, we have a lot of introverts in here. Again, we're very solid thinkers. It's just the way that it is. Majority of leaders, in my experience, are very extroverted. That's why they have the roles that they have, okay? Again, they're able to talk with people. They're not worried about it. They're personable. They're people, all right? But when you think about the leader membership exchange, have you ever met the individual that's so quiet and they're one of the most talented people in the room? I have. I have. And again, this is anecdotal. So again, when you think about that in-group and that out-group, that's one of the things that I find very dangerous in the form of leadership as it comes into cybersecurity. So if I had to surmise it in my own words, I would advise that politics and favorites play a role in in-groups and out-groups when it comes to organizations. Can anyone raise their hand and agree with that? I just do. I'm sorry. When you have a group of people, I don't care what the actual reason will be, there will be those politics, there will be those favorites, there will be those individual, well, that's so-and-so, they don't have the credentials, but I like them, so I'm going to choose them for this leadership role, right? And again, I'm not saying that happens everywhere, but it has happened in my career, in my opinion. So, when to think quickly, when to think slowly. What you see is all there is. 7 times 835 is 5,845. I knew that in the back of my mind. I didn't use a calculator. I just lied. Of course I used a calculator. I was on my Linux machine and I was on Libre and the whole nine, right? So no, I broke out the calculator, of course I did. But do you see what I'm trying to do? Like I'm trying to show you, again, when I put up a certain amount of fingers of my hand, you can count those very quickly. But again, with the leadership factor, if I say 7 times 835 and you can't answer right away, whatever happened to the fact that you can turn around and just tell a person, I don't know right now, but I'll find the answer. And I find that a lot in cybersecurity leadership as well. I am not a big social media person. And I know that there's some great aspects about it. I am on LinkedIn, I am on that, and it is what it is. But I have seen so much fluff in social media regarding our industry and leadership in this industry. I don't know if you all feel the same, but just these tips, these advice. And I go back to 20 plus years ago when I'm thinking about when I started this career, again, didn't have those type of platforms. But I also think about the way and the leaders that I had in my life and in my career that just, again, it's not what you do, it's not what you say, it's how you make people what? Feel. Right? So I ask you, if you're not in a leadership role right now, go ahead and always remember that, because again, if you would have talked to me 20, 30 years ago and said you'd be in a leadership role now, I would have said, no way, no how. I would have said, there's not any way. It's just like, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to be the technical individual, because again, when I'm thinking back in the 2000s, my main goal was to be a CCIE. Do we have any Cisco nerds in here? Like that was the main goal. And then it was towards the late 2000s when I decided to make the switch to cyber. Right? So again, that was my goal, and then you have all these shifts. So as you keep learning, as you keep progressing, because this industry, you're always going to learn. Show of hands, agree? I mean, you are. That should be a system one like method of thinking right out of the gate. This is a lifelong learning journey. And it's great, right? It'd be boring, right? You wouldn't be in it if we just went ahead and it's like, okay, we have a super user do. You're good. Actually, when I started learning Linux more and more, I wish that was the only command you had to remember, right? But no, you have to do sudo apt install, et cetera, et cetera. So, when to think quickly, when to think slowly, take it as a life lesson. And always just remember, just how you make people feel. And what I have seen in my lifetime and in my career, I've seen very, very poor leadership take people out of this industry. Right? And again, it's a reactionary type tale that a leader in a leadership role will be like, well, why did this happen? How could you not fix this? How do you not know this? And it just crushes people. So again, if you're not a leader yet, know that you might be at one time. And Kahneman and Klein are two authors, again, which I'll have it on the references here, that I find very near and dear to my heart. It was something that changed my life, because WYSIWYG, I've known forever and a day. What you see is what you get. But what you see is all there is. Can you see how those two can kind of come together? At the very beginning, though, I put less than or equal to, right? Because not everything we see is everything that it is. But what about those to where that is what it is, right? And so the system one type people, sometimes they could take that a little too far. System two people, they think more in algorithms. Again, there's times where you need to go and have system one, right? Fight or flight, you need to have that. But don't have it 24/7, right? Go ahead and think about what you're doing and how you're leading and when you're leading. So my final thoughts. The Knock-In Zoo, some of my favorite authors of all time, The Pragmatic View. If you're not familiar with this text, they talk a lot about the Nintendo Wii. Anyone remember the Nintendo Wii? I'm going to geek out here because, again, I loved my 360 and my PS3. But Nintendo Wii was one of those innovative like platforms. Do you all remember like they were so hard to find, right? That's the last time I camped out for anything, right? So I made sure, I really did. And that was back in like, I think it was 2006, last time I camped out for anything. So the Knock-In Zoo will say that paradigms, okay? Paradigms is basically the unconscious thought of the fact that we use paradigms to decide what we think, how we think, what we do, and how we do things differently than others. Therefore, sometimes leaders have conflicting differences when they are asked to describe leadership and paradigms. However, I ask you to be aware that if you are not yet, you very well will be in a leadership role in this industry, whether you believe it or not. Ergo, please know when to think quickly, understand when to think slowly. Be aware of silos, please. Be aware of silos. And remember how you felt when you were presented with poor leadership and how it impacted your work. And I go back, it was on the slide back when we were talking about System 1 and System 2. One of the things that I've noticed about System 1 level of thinking when it comes to cybersecurity leadership for those that have not been in the roles that you and I have been in and what we've learned is that the System 1 can hijack your thinking and it will create a narrative to adhere to basically their context. Does that make sense? They'll go ahead and they can make their own narrative on what they want it to be, right? It's kind of like you're caught. And so anyone here ever been pulled over, right? Why'd I pull you over? I don't know. Were you speeding? No. God, well, okay, I might have been speeding. Oops, I dropped all my cards. I might have been speeding, but I'm in a hurry, right? So the list goes on and on. So just remember how you make people feel. So that being said, I'll gladly take any questions as I pick up all these cards. Any questions, comments, concerns? Sure. How so?
I'm a CISO, so my team is the level 4 support.
Yeah.
Really go sideways. And our job is to have system 2 thinking, and everyone else is system 1 response.
Nice. Nice.
We define, this is the procedure, this is what you do when it hits the fan, and they look to us for that lead.
So you already have System 2 thinking in place.
We do.
Yeah.
At the enterprise level, we have to have the system to guide system 1 response.
Right. Ooh, say that one more time. You have to have
You have to have the process procedure in place to guide system 1 response.
Nice. So you have your System 2 to support your System 1. Because everyone that has an emergency calls you in a great mood.
Not usually.
No, it was a joke.
My CEO called me from Spain.
Really?
He was stuck in an airport because CrowdStrike had taken his
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
We're a CrowdStrike shop, so he was freaking out.
Yeah.
At 3 in the morning for me, 9 a.m. for him.
Yeah.
We put our system 2 response plan in, we immediately went into IR.
Uh-huh.
Even though it wasn't a security incident, we were the ones who had the plan.
See, that to me, and like that's a great example because I myself, if I can't find my gate or I'm late, I'm System 1 all the time at an airport. I mean, I am. I mean, it's just one of those, like, anyone here ever miss a flight before? Like, it's happened to me once. Again, just that anxiety that you have. Then on top of that, because again, like, they weren't even able to see their gates when that vulnerability, or I'm sorry, that exploit took place. It was unreal. Yeah, that's a good example. I like that. I like that.
I would put that on a t-shirt.
I want that as a tattoo. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
I have a question and a comment. My comment is for my colleague across the room. I just want to say it's awesome he's got a Megadeth shirt on Saturday.
His head won't be able to fit out the door.
I was actually, I hate to say it because I was listening to Tom Morello on the way down. He was talking, so he was like spooky, and it was Megadeth all around. So anyways, I'm sorry, go ahead.
My question is, can I get a copy of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can give him a card here in a little bit and ask for an email. I'll gladly give you a copy. Yeah, yeah.
The talks are also being recorded. It'll go on the website after, give us a minute, but it'll
Yeah.
uploaded up there. Just one hot minute, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can even see last year's. Yeah. And give it up for SecureWV. Yeah. I was complimenting, again, like, how are you going to top this?
Thank you.
No, seriously, because last year when I came home, I still have mine on my door. So like I have like molding on my door, so I put it there. So of course that one's going to go on the other side of my office. How are you going to top this?
But I don't know. There was a little bit of panic because I didn't think they were going to come in on time because of who I am as a person. But we got there. Yeah, I don't know. Just for so a couple people have asked. These are from a company in Maine called Fashion Statement, like fashion but with an L jammed in there. Super lovely to work with. If you guys have a need for that, recommend hitting up. Reference us because we can get like a coupon or something. So.
Well, take a bow, Jimmy. Go ahead. Take a bow. Well done. Well done. Well done.
I know what a bow is. I didn't realize.
Jimmy's the one that will contact you about everything. Any hour of the day. She is.
Well, I mean, turn your notifications off. I don't know. Like,
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, again, I was up too when I emailed you. So again, it happens. Yeah.
I gotta do it when I can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, any other questions, comments, or concerns? I'm the only thing between you and lunch, and I could go ahead and tell more jokes. Well, here we go. Sorry I was late this afternoon. There was a police chase outside. Apparently some convicts escaped. They were unethical hackers. Want to know what they did? They ran somewhere.
Can you tell that joke to James McQuiggan, please?
Sure,
Thank you.
sure.
Because he will.
We're still being recorded, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, indeed. Oh, it gets worse.
It's not a trap, I promise.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, that's probably been one of my favorite jokes. Cybersecurity meets a corny joke. I like it. I like it. All right. Well, again, if you would like, right here's my email. I also have cards. If you'd like to come up here, did have a little stumble, but I promise they're clean. So, and here are all my references. That being said, thank you all. Again, thanks to Jimmy and her team. Again, SecureWV, I look forward to next year. It's always a great conference. Again, it's like come one, come all, right? So long live SecureWV, right? Round of applause, right? Yeah. Thank you all so much. I wish you an awesome day, an awesome weekend. Stay safe, stay well, and stay sane. And remember, what you see, and there's one more thing before you leave. We are TBITB. Anyone here knows what that stands for?
The best in the business.
Who are we?
The best of the business.
Who are we? One more time. Who are we?
The best in the business.
One more time. Who are we? We are the best in the business all day and every day. You all have a great lunch. See you all here in about an hour. Thanks again.